it's Brandy and Kayla. Welcome back to Hella Friends. We have a super exciting episode for you today.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Kayla Coombe, and today we're going to dive deep into something that truly affects every single one of us, mental health and our emotional resilience to it, right? So we all go through struggles, we have hard times, and at the end of the day, it tends to make us stronger, but it's how we deal with it that gets us there.
And today we have a special guest. Today we have Jas Kirk with us from Honeydew Podcast. Hi, Jas. Welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me.
That's cool. So we're going to talk about some gems about like mental health and setting boundaries and how we as women can become stronger. Also, by the way, tomorrow is Women's Day.
International Women's Day, yeah.
So this is an amazing podcast to kind of jumpstart that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely within the month of that, but I mean, mental health is something that I think is very important to me, and it affects everyone very differently. So I'm glad that we're talking about it, because at the end of the day, women actually are like way higher to have mental health issues than it would be like a man. You know, we're just more
susceptible.
Yep. There it is.
Well, men have mental health issues too. It has been frowned upon for them to talk about it for so long. And that's one of the cool things about raising healthy men now in this era, because when I was growing up, men were not supposed to cry. They were not supposed to show emotions or anything like that. So when I had my sons, I kind of scrapped all of that.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to grow into that.
Build a new generation of men who actually know how to articulate their feelings, emotions, and build empathy and all of those things for themselves first.
Yes. So I appreciate us coming full circle as a society, especially with Black men, because they were really not supposed to show any emotion. And I'm thankful for that, because I have raised men who are able to cry and to laugh and to express healthy how they are feeling.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a couple of personal stories on mental health, and Jas, you can interject with us.
Yeah.
Kayla, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
I wrote a whole book about mine. So, I've had a lot of like trauma that has happened to me from a kiddo until now. Like I had deaths very young in my family, but it wasn't until I was 40, when my son was wrongfully incarcerated, that I had a true mental break, like a very true mental break. And it wasn't until my spouse said something to me, because I didn't realize how bad I was.
Yeah.
Because I was having anxiety attack, like whole anxiety attacks in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Just sitting there not doing anything. Whole anxiety attacks. And he didn't really know how to talk to me about that because it was so traumatic. I had to go to a psych doctor. Mm-hmm. And when I went, psych doctors, their whole thing is tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And I said, do you want the past 6 months or the past 30 years?
Yeah, you're like, where do I begin?
Yeah. And she said, start with the past 6 months. And so I did. I started with the past 6 months. And she goes, all right. She wrote 8 scripts.
Oh, wow. Yeah. She's like, okay, here, this is how we hush this, medicate this, get you through to the next 6 months.
Yep. That is exactly what happened. And so that paired with therapy, because when I walked away from that, I was like, oh, I'm broken. I'm literally broken. And it wasn't until talking through it and writing about it and working through it and in therapy that I realized I'm not broken. This happens to almost everybody.
Yeah.
So many more than you really realize.
Mm-hmm. And that was scary for me, because you don't really get that in a doctor's office. They're just like, oh, we're going to write this for you. You might want to talk to a therapist.
Yeah.
Or you just want to keep coming back. It's up to you.
But I think that's a conversation in itself of people don't realize the difference between having a therapist and a psychiatrist, and a psychiatrist's specialization is to prescribe you something.
Medication.
Versus like a therapist is, though some therapists can prescribe, and also like they have specializations of helping you breathe or like somatic therapy and all of that. Like you do have to learn that difference because you'll be guided in one direction or another. And it takes going through the experience to actually know, like, this is what I'm going to get. And like you get, I always tell people, you get curious. Yeah. Like you started writing and journaling or whatever it was, and you got curious about like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Like I'm not actually broken, but I feel broken.
Yeah. And I did. I felt, you know, sadly, your family can break you more than anybody else.
Ooh. And it's usually
your family.
Yeah.
I've always said God puts our most challenging lessons within our family.
Yes. Really. Because I had gone through so many other things, and it wasn't until like my kid put me through some stuff. I'm like, you are the straw.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I made you. You are the straw.
Yeah.
So it was a very challenging experience. I'm glad to have had it though, because I've come out a healthier person, which I didn't think I would. Because when you're there,
when you're in it, you don't see the light at the other side, and you're constantly like, okay, but am I even going to get there? Like, is the work that I'm putting in worth it?
Yeah.
Is it actually making a difference in what I'm doing? So I get that. My story is actually similar with a little difference there. So I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder from my childhood. There were plenty of things that happened. I don't remember most of it. Really, I've blacked out most. And so I'm in a very different spot in my journey, I think, than you are.
Yeah.
I'm about you, like maybe 10 years back, So I went through that. And then from there, of course, bad relationships and other things that just build upon it because you're in this like bad headspace. And I know everyone looks at me and they're like, well, what do you plan to do with your life? Or like, what are you doing? Or like all these different things. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be alive.
Yeah.
Like I was in a total different headspace. And then it wasn't until I met my husband and he, eventually was like, look, I can't even like do this relationship right now because you want to focus on everybody else around you and you won't focus on yourself.
Ooh.
So I have to step out so that you have no choice but to focus on you because I'm not there for you to focus on.
Yeah.
And it was very hard, and we spent a few months apart. And then from there, that's when I really started my journey. I found the therapist that I'm now still seeing. I've been going for over 6 years. It's made quite a difference. And I didn't actually see a psychiatrist until this last year.
Yeah.
Like, it was very important to me to try to put in some of that work and work through it because I didn't know how much of it was what I'd gone through versus like what was actually chemically happening in my head.
But what you kind of shared, I think a lot of people, like one, there was a lot of cycles that you were repeating. And then when you finally match with a healthy relationship, it can't sustain the toxicity. Mm-hmm. And people look at that as like, that's the toxic person. And it's like, no, this person has a mirror. And that mirror is back to you. And you have to have a moment to say, I'm willing to look at this person in the mirror, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hard, and love her. And it's like, we always think there's someone who's going to come save us, but there's someone who's going to come and say, journey back within self and trust that. And I think that's so beautiful. Like, it's powerful that you had your husband. But it is, I think when I have conversations with people, I always try to shine light on that mirror and those cycles that we don't realize we're in, that we're like spinning and you're choosing the same type of partner that fulfills the toxic need that you have and you don't even know you have it.
Yeah, I used to how I would describe myself within my friend groups was that I thrived in chaos.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be in a relationship that did not have chaos. Yeah. And so it was crazy because Tong and I, we were friends for 3.5 years before we even got to that point of trying to be together. And it was that thing of like, when we first got together, I was like, but you're so calm.
Yeah.
Like, why are we not fighting?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? And it did.
Because that's my spouse. He was so calm when he told me I needed to seek help. It was kind of like the Twilight Zone kind of happening.
Yeah.
Because all he said was, I don't think I can help you through this.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him like, what?
Well, the thing is, though, is that it's crazy. But the thing is that really it is on you, though. Like, you have to do this. I tell everyone, a lot of the work that I've had to do and a lot of the journeys I've gone through, you know, were passed from generations, too. They weren't all my battles to begin with.
Yeah.
But when they hit me, it was my responsibility to fight it. Like, at that point, I have to put in the work. I have to see that, because if someone does it for you, what happens when they get tired of doing it for you? And like, that's not sustainable to your well-being.
I really didn't want to get divorced. And he was just like, I need you to talk to someone, because you will not talk to me. Because I have like a wall that goes up. And I'm one of those people, I don't thrive in chaos. I just bulldoze right through it. Like, I was going to work every day and I pretended like nothing was happening, but internally, like I was on fire.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when we would get home, he was the one that would see like
you fall apart.
Exactly.
All of the wreckage and everything. So when it was, you have to talk to somebody because you cannot keep going on like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, or what? Like,
but you really can't go 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
For long periods of time. Even if you think about a car, it cannot go 100 miles an hour and never stop for gas, never stop for maintenance, never stop for XYZ. You got to stop to go to the bathroom. You got to and so that preventative maintenance has to occur. And that's a lot of times what people don't realize this journey is of like, you don't do it only because there's a problem. You want to like address the problems and issues and you don't spend eternity with all your childhood trauma. Like that's not the goal to like unpack every day with your parents. Like you got to give them some grace, but then what do we do moving forward and how do you unfold in that. So
what do you think is the biggest misconception about mental health?
It's just the stigma. The word itself is just like, this is scary. Like when we don't talk about it. And as a society for generations, we've been put the smile on your face and everything's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. How are you today? I'm amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But how are you really? How are you today? And I think once we start to really just hold space, like this conversation right now is just saying, we don't necessarily have to change anything.
Yeah.
We're just holding space for each other to share our stories. And that I think is the most impactful thing. And that was what started my journey of like, my brother committed suicide and I was like, oh my God, I get it. And I had peace. But then I was like, Jas, what if you just like worked on healing yourself? That was the only life I was like trying to save in that moment. Cause I was like, my brother gifted me like the outcome.
Yeah.
And I could relate to it. And so all of my work starting 8 years ago was and still to this day is like, I'm really just working on myself and I get to impact other people with that. Like
by
they see the light to say, oh, I really want to just take one step. And that's all I really like. When I created Honeydew, the name, I decided like I wanted it to be an affirmation. And so I studied the root of words. And so honey, HUNNI, means you are strong, and then DUOE, gifted and talented. And so when I say mental health is really like, if you say the word, people are like, oh yeah, it's getting thick in there.
You know, that you say mental health, you know what the subtext is? Crazy.
Yeah. So that's why when I created Honeydew, I was like, people don't even know they're saying an affirmation. I am strong, gifted, and talented. And it's changing your psyche. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's literally the first step of like, let's change whatever I thought before. What if I think a new thought? Yeah. What if I choose a new way? And that's going back to like when you shared your story, you got curious, you got that mirror back to yourself. And so that, like, my biggest goal right now is just to gift people like an opportunity to look at this from a new way.
Oh, good. Yeah, because the way we've been looking at it is not good. It's bad.
We're going to have private meetings and nobody's going to talk about it. And if you do talk about it, it's still this really closed off space, but it's like at work. Mm-hmm. And if you go shopping, every single individual has a brain.
Yeah. Yep.
Every person on this in this world, we can all relate to that.
Yeah. And the more we start to have those conversations and we're open about them, the more you start to realize just how much we have in common. Yep. So oddly enough, my therapist is actually my friend and my neighbor.
Yeah.
And I've known them for years, but I was having a really hard time when I was going through things with my son, because I also have a sibling that's an addict. Mm. And it got really low to where they had to make a house call. Mm. And in that house call moment, my wonderful therapist said, you do realize this is not you. Like, there is one in every family. If you sit down and start talking to your circle of friends and the people you know, you will realize there's this type of person in every family. Yeah. And the more we talk about it and normalize it, you are not by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do feel so alone in it all the time. I think that that's something that really did shift my mindset on it, and what really started my journey and has kept me there, because every time I talk about it and every time I share, you have someone say like, wow, I would have never known, and like, thank you, because now I relate to that, and now I feel less alone because of it.
Yeah.
So it's honestly crazy how much we haven't talked about it in the past, and how just even that small shift and change of just owning it and saying like, okay, yeah, I've gone through things. I'm not perfect. I didn't handle it all perfectly. I also then became partially toxic, and whatever happened, I'm going to own it. And this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to go, and like, this is what I'm going to do to get there.
But it's the shame. Like, shame says, you better not dare tell anybody about any of this.
Yeah.
And then you hold on to that, like, yeah, we can't tell anybody. But the moment you're like, shame, can you be quiet? Mm-hmm, I'm going to tell people this. It can't live anymore. Like, that's the moment you're like, okay, let me expose this. Like, I fear sharing this, but I have to share it to save my life right now. Like, then shame goes away. And, but for so long, so many people sit with the shame of the story that they don't realize shame is not the friend.
No, it's the enemy.
It's a toxic friend that's like, girl,
And once you tell the first person, you just get such a sense of like
relief.
Oh, it's and like, then you share more, and like, you're able, it's just a small little tiny moment.
It's like you've been holding your breath for so long that you're like, how long can I go? And the moment you release it, you're like, oh my God, I finally exhaled. It took years for me to exhale. And now I feel my exhale. Like, that's exactly how it feels.
And I hate that, because I know as a society as a whole, we've built all of this around shame, and to where we're not supposed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because even talking to my mom, I'm not going to talk about that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Or, oh, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's just got some issues. What?
So when my brother, and Black woman, Black family, my brother committed suicide, and getting the funeral arrangements and everything, getting a pastor, to pastor a funeral. And the pastor actually spoke on this topic because if you're Baptist or whatever, like Black church
That's
is like,
sin.
it's a sin.
It's a big sin.
God. But you like, even in that moment, he addressed a really tough topic of like, no matter what people are coming here, we are celebrating a life. But it also was like, you saw so many family members' ideologies on this topic. Like, we're telling people like, hey, Daniel passed. My auntie was like, we don't tell people that. And I still to this day always laugh like, auntie, like, how do you address, like, how are we supposed to address this?
Yeah.
Like, I know this is how you feel, but like, this happened.
Yeah.
This happened. And no matter like your shame in this, what you think, and for my family, this has become a real conversation. Like, we really start to look at, and even my mom, like, me and my siblings, we go to therapy. We discuss it. Like, we'll be sitting like, man, I missed therapy this week. Because we were, in November, we were all on a huge family, like, reunion trip. Mm-hmm. And me and my brother were just sitting like, dang, we missed therapy this week. And my oldest brother was talking about therapy. And my brother's wife was looking like, yeah, babe, you gotta. But I love that my family now welcomes it. And when there's hard moments, I'm like, hey, mom, do you think you need this or that? And she comes from a generation where that's not acceptable, but we, like, I know me and my siblings are that generation. My cousins are that generation for that change. And the empathy and love and patience that I have, that I can see, like, therapy helped me see my mom and any trauma I had, like, she didn't know no better. Like, the moment I had that moment in therapy, like, she did not know any better. That's crazy. I love you, lady.
That's what me and my sisters are dealing with my mom right now. So my dad died suddenly when I was 15. My brother died when I was 17 from AIDS in the 90s. And we don't talk about that with my mother. And then I have another brother who's an addict. Me and my sisters have all been in therapy. I went to therapy on my own after my dad died because I was not okay. My mom has yet, this is over 30 years of just interpersonal trauma in our little family. My mother refuses to go to therapy. My mother's whole thing is, you have to pray enough for this to work. Prayer is amazing.
Yeah.
However, you're going to have to put in a little bit of work too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore the things that have happened to you because they create who you are.
Yeah.
And I've, like, now when I look at my mom, I'm just like, poor thing.
Yeah. So I had that same, actually very similar conversation with my mom. My father who raised me passed, my grandma passed, and my brother passed. And I said to my mom, it was actually someone else, like, who said, you would never have known your mom has went through all of that trauma because the joy that she currently has. And so one day I said to my mom, the amount of pain to lose your husband, your mother, and your son in one lifetime is actually, like, I can't fathom the pain that even the things you talk to us about, I can't fathom the things that you don't say because I like, you have true grief. And I pray for the day that you release that and go share that with someone. But it's like, I always encourage her that we're holding space and there's someone somewhere going to hold space for all of this that you have.
Yep.
Because, like, even like we talked about men earlier, there's shame in them, but there's also women who are holding great amount of pain of, like, the loss of husbands and mothers and sons. Like, you don't know you're gonna, the love of your life is gonna go one day. Like, when you say those nuptials, you're like, for better or worse, they get richer or poor, till death do us part. And then death comes. Like, that fear of, like, my marriage ended because of death. How do I look at this and move forward? Or your parent, you have to see your parent through sickness and like grieving that, or like you don't think in this lifetime you will lose a child and have to grieve that. And so there's like so many layers of just the mothering that we all have within us as women. But like, how do you look at that inner child and say, oh, let me give you a big hug?
Yeah. It's really hard to process too. And then you look at the different types of generations, because my mom is much older. She's in her 80s. And I have to be mindful of how she was raised and how things were when she was growing up. My mom got married in 1960.
Yeah.
like whole different world.
Women couldn't have bank accounts.
We couldn't have a home. We couldn't have a car. Yeah. Like it was a whole different era when my parents got married and when they were growing up as kids. And so I look at that and I can't fathom all the things my mom has had to go through. Yeah. And she's still standing and she's still like doing her, but part of me wants to say, don't you want to unpack some of this?
Yeah.
Just a teeny tiny bit of it, so that the rest of your life can be as enjoyable and as pleasurable as possible.
Yeah.
Me and my sisters, we're always talking how Mom is stuck in 1967. That was like the best year of her life. Yeah. She talks about it constantly. And we just let her do it because that literally was the best year of her life. I'm okay with that. Yeah. If that's where you want to live because you don't want to be able to move forward, that's fine. Me personally, I'm so resilient. I want to move forward.
Yeah.
I want to keep going. And I'm learning not everybody is able to move past that. Yeah. So we just kind of have to love them through it. And it's hard. It's real hard to love people through that part.
Because you want to save them. You're like, oh, I see the light.
Yes.
Come to the light. And they're like, no, I'm good here. So you have to, the empathetic parts of us have to be like, I don't have to save you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had to learn that with both sides of my family. So my dad's side is Nazarene. They're very religious, very small town, like that kind of life. Where my mom comes from, like an alcoholic father. It's, all kinds of mess on the other side of it. And that's what I've had to figure out is, it's not my responsibility to save them. It's just my responsibility to kind of meet them where they are and say like, okay, like I understand where you come from. I understand like what happened and how things unfolded. Maybe you were aware, maybe you weren't, whatever the case, but meeting them where they're at and not feeling like I have to pull them on that journey with me. Because we were talking about how, some families learn to accept the therapy, learn to embrace it. It starts becoming more of an open topic. It's like that with my mom's side, but on my dad's side, it would absolutely never. Like when I told them like, hey, I'm starting therapy, they were like, why?
Yeah.
You don't need that. Like, you just need to go to church on Sunday mornings and like get back to God. Like this is what will fix it. And you don't need to do anything else. So it's been a long 6 years of hitting that point of like, oh, I can just come and be here and talk and just meet you where you're at. And I don't have to pull you on this healing journey with me.
It's kind of like a person that's drowning though, because you can see them in the water and you can like go out to try to save them, but they sometimes try to pull you down.
Yeah.
And so you have to swim away from them and just kind of throw them a life preserver and see if they'll save themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes they will. Sometimes they will. Sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
And you have to you have to be okay with that. And that's hard, especially when you're on your own emotional journey, is to watch people drown. But in the same breath, if you're able to save yourself and you have family around you and you're a better person, you're saving so many other people.
Yep. It starts bleeding into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've seen a lot of growth and healing from them both, honestly, even though they might have been opposed to what I was doing. Yeah. They might not have liked it in the beginning. both of them are like, oh, you're going there to complain about us. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that is not what this is.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
My mom, like, you guys aren't talking about me.
Yeah.
If you would go to therapy, you would know how it is. Yeah. But until then, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally looked at them and I was like, no, I literally basically just sit there and cry, but okay. Like, if that's what you think is happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is that situation of just like, okay, you know, they might have not been on board. They might have been opposed, but the change I've seen in them just by seeing the possibility and the shift in me has made such a difference.
I think I became a better mom.
Oh, I did all of this because of my son,
became a better mom because I could see some of that trauma trying to filter in to how I was raising my kids. And I was just like, yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And, you know, teenage boys are hard. They're hard.
Thank you.
People don't realize they're just as hard as girls. And if they're being raised by a single mom, they get real rebellious. Yeah. And they have a lot of emotions and feelings and stuff too. And I had a kiddo who was like really going through some stuff because he was being bullied and he didn't want to talk to me. And, you know, the advice I got from my mother was not good advice. And so I was like, how about this? You don't want to talk to me. That's fine. You want to go talk to a therapist. You can talk about me. You can talk about what's happening. It doesn't have to be me.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the best person for you to talk to about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, he's 27 now, but when he went to therapy and when he was done, he said, Mom, that changed a lot of stuff that was happening within me. And he thanks me for sending him to therapy.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you're like, whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did something right.
I did something right. Woo. Okay, score 1 for Brandy. But my mom would have never. Yeah. In fact, she was so opposed to that piece. And so when I did it, there was a lot of smack being talked about, like, oh, you just need to take the boys to church more and you need to figure out what's going on. I am not qualified to do that piece.
Yeah.
And he might have an issue with me as his parent.
Yeah.
Because we all have issues with our parents. So there might be something within me he just really can't stand right now.
Yeah.
Let him talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
And our relationship is amazing. Like, my kid calls me, he still comes and hangs. He just wants to hang out with his mom.
Oh my gosh. Love that.
He's almost 30. He's just like, I'm just going to go hang out with my mom. I'm just going to go be in her presence. I'm not like that.
You're like, Mom, I love you.
Yeah. Like, mine's kind of cringe. It's like, oh, I gotta
let me go.
I gotta go do this. And so I wanted that kind of relationship. I wanted that balance. Yep. And so I am a firm believer in you probably need to talk to somebody. I might not be the best person. Yeah. You probably need to talk to someone who's unbiased.
Yeah.
You know, that can save you. I can't save you. I'm going to have opinions and I'm going to have, you know, internal things that I'm dealing with. Go talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm a better parent because of that.
Yeah.
So I implore everybody who's having issues with teenagers to seek help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know with Ryder, there was a point in time where, you know, we were all 4 of us, I say, as his parent crew, was like very concerned and worried. He was having a lot of anxiety. He's having a lot of like just full-blown meltdowns. And we were like, oh my goodness. And I was like, he's got to go to therapy because he won't open up and talk to me like that. And I want that relationship with him. And sometimes I can get him there and sometimes like he just doesn't want to. And at the end of the day, it's because he feels more comfortable speaking with someone who doesn't have that personal opinion in the situation, right? Because a lot of times it is something he needs to process or feel about one of us as his parents.
Yeah.
So it's easier to talk to someone else. And then I know, Brandy, you're very aware as we've started progressing into these preteen years that it's been very escalated. And so although he had stopped therapy for a while, it's definitely been conversation in the house again of like, maybe we should like go back to that, and we've started doing like this mother and son journal, trying to like talk. And I know in that there was a question that asked like what my biggest fear was, and my answer in there to him was, I'm scared that that I'm going to fail as your mom, and you're going to see me the way that I had seen my parents when I was your age. Like, I don't want you to be a teen going through all of that and feeling so alone in it. And like, the cool thing about it is once he reads that, he like looks up and he's like, Mom, like,
I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah. He's like, you're the best. Why would you think that? And I'm just like, I mean, we don't talk that much. Like, I don't know. I don't know where I stand.
Yeah.
So it's opening those conversations. And I think it's so important with these new generations coming up too.
But it's also vulnerability. Like, you're willing to get vulnerable with him and let him in so he's able to see you and meet you back with that. And it's like vulnerability is our greatest strength that we're always like, it's weakness, it's strength. It's pure
and
strength.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's real scary to let your kids see you vulnerable because the perception that we're supposed to have as parents.
We're supposed to be superwoman.
We're superwoman. We're superman. Yep. There's nothing that we can and cannot do. And then as soon as you show your child, I am human, they have this totally different look about you because they know you're flawed. I have talked to my sons over and over and over again about, was I a failure as a parent, especially my younger one, because he did all this stuff that led up to my mental breakdown. He had to finally sit me down and say, this had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like nothing. It has none of the decisions I've made as a young person, an adult, have anything to do with you.
Yeah.
It's about me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's hard to hear because you always want to internalize those things, which is a great thing to talk about in therapy. Is how you can't take on other people's stuff, their baggage.
Fix it. Yeah.
You can't fix it. And so now in my life, because they are adults, because hormones have a lot to do with
yeah, I know. We're at the hormone phase.
with that. But as an adult, you can look at your children as adults and say, okay, that's on you.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with me. I did my job. And I'm at that phase in my life right now. It's like, okay, if you want to go out there and be an idiot, has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I did what I was supposed to do. I got you to that point. You have the tools to make right and wrong decisions. All right. And you have to be okay with that. And that's really hard because they don't teach you how to be a parent. And everything that we're taught is, stuff that
on the job learning.
Yeah. And even then it's like you hear other people say things and it is past trauma or past shame.
Yep.
And things that are not really healthy to help raise kids.
Yeah. I hear it all the time. I know for me, it's been quite the journey, right? Because I had Ryder really young. I was a single mom. And then I started my mental health journey and trying to heal because I did see that. I was noticing that I was starting to say things that my parents had said to me or like done things that I was like, oh, no, this isn't who you want to be as a mom. This isn't what you want to teach him and show him. And it was having to kind of go through that process and be like, okay. And then I know with my mom, she would be like, oh, I just don't know how you have the patience for all of this. Like, da, 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 da. Or she would have these crazy things she would say. And I'd be like, Mom, I am not doing that.
Yeah.
That is not how I'm handling this.
It stops here and now.
Yeah, like, it's stopping.
Yeah.
So what's the importance of setting like those healthy boundaries with these toxic people that we have in our lives?
So that you don't, like, you continue your work. Like, you have to and setting a boundary doesn't mean that, like, it's set in stone. Like, you have to start to see what you have the capacity for, not what you used to have the capacity for. But in this moment, this version of me, I can no longer, like, take that in. Mm-hmm. So I have to set this boundary. And that's for my healing. This is not you. This is me. Yeah. And I have, like, we often are like, that's selfish. I have to get selfish with me to save me. I got to put my life vest on me first. I got to put my oxygen mask on me first. And I think boundary setting oftentimes is like, there's a problem with you. No, this is me. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that misconception starts to come, but it's so important to set that so you can put that mirror up to yourself and say, okay, who am I now? What can I accept? Get curious with yourself in this moment so that you can show up and be better.
And doing that along the journey.
Yeah.
Because it shifts and it changes, so fast along your way. Like, as you're doing the therapy, as you're setting the boundaries, as you're changing the tone of your life, there's so many times where then what I needed in my healing journey at the start of it is not what I need in my healing journey right now. Yeah. It changes. You have to keep putting that mirror up and keep facing it, over and over again.
And it also leaves room for, I was recently sharing with someone, like, the people who are no longer able to help you, you gotta be able to see that, like, I can't keep running to this person who I know the response they're going to give me. Mm-hmm. I know the advice they're going to give me, but I know that's no longer the way. And that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. That means that's no longer the way for me. And you leave room for the people who are able to help, who are able to come, who are able to nurture this version of you to actually move forward. Like you said earlier, like, I'm trying to move forward. So you gotta make room for that. Yeah. That's it. Clean house. So, like, you can make room for it.
I think often, though, it's hard when you do set those firm boundaries. Because I've lost a lot of friends because, when you're growing and you're figuring out how to heal and stuff, and there's people in your life that's just incredibly toxic and will pull from you. Because I had people that were like pulling all the good from me to where there was like hardly anything left. And when you say, okay, this is not healthy for me. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I get that you say you're my friend. However, this relationship is not healthy for me, at least not now on the path that I'm on. You make a lot of people mad when you do that. And there's an aspect of guilt that comes along with it. And even to this day, I'm still trying to process like that guilt part. So I struggle with that because it essentially you're setting that boundary and you're pushing that person out of your life so you can grow. But there's a piece of you that's like, did I really need to do that?
Yeah. Could I have done more? Uh-huh. I love them. I care about them. I don't want to hurt them. By pushing them out, I'm doing them harm.
Yeah.
And it does, back to what you said, it does make you feel that selfish. Like, oh, I'm so selfish for like not being able to do more and not being able to keep taking that in.
Yeah.
I know I felt that way with a lot of people throughout the time because I have shrunk my life so much and like the people that I let in and the people that are super close because I had to create a bubble. My mental health could not take all of the things going on in the world anymore. Yeah. Like, I had to like just get to a place where I could take care of myself and focus on myself. And the guilt and the hurt that, I felt like they're hurt and I'm hurting because I feel like I did that, when at the end of the day, like, I love them just as much right now as I did all along that way. My mental health needs like a pause. I can't take in where you're at right now.
But you have to be number one on your list. Yeah. Like, how people are like, who's my husband, my kids? Where are you? You need to be number one, and they're 2 and 3. And even like, I always use this analogy, like, how you play kickball and you have to pick teams, or like recess and you used to pick teams. You have to pick yourself. Yeah. Like, if everybody's out there, I'm going to pick me.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick me.
Yeah.
Like, and we don't realize, like, in life, I have to pick me. I can't choose you. I got to pick me. I'd love if you could come along, but if you can't, I'm gonna pick me. Like, that's it. And we aren't always gifted that reminder. Like, it was okay that you chose you and not them.
Yeah. In a previous podcast, we talked about how, because I always tell people I did not live for my children, because eventually I knew my children were going to be where they're at now, adults. And my mom would say, oh, I lived for my kids, because she did. She had 6 kids and she lived for us. I didn't want to do that, because I knew your children have their own personality, their own way of life. You have to grow and be on the other side of that. Yeah. So who are you? And I don't live for my husband either. I live for me. And when people realize, oh, she does what she wants, and they said, oh, well, you don't take Jeremy into consideration. Mm-hmm, I do. I talk to him about things. But at the end of the day, who's going to be happy with the decision that I have to make for myself? Me. He could care less.
Yeah.
But I think that that's such a journey too to get there, because so many women just don't see that example in life. Like,
I didn't have that example either.
Well, I know, but I'm saying, like, it's because you don't have that example. It gives you the shame. It gives you the selfishness. It's hard to decide, like, wait, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can choose this. I can be this. I can get here.
And I think we have to make it okay.
Yeah, we have to have the conversations that saying, like, no, choose yourself. You have to. You know, you have to choose yourself. You have to do what's right and make sure that you're taking care of you. Because I know I try to say that all the time of, like, you know, Ryder's going to grow up and he's gonna leave. And then there's me. And I've got to make sure that I still have myself and have my life. But those first few years, like, it wasn't that way. I was living for him, and it took a while to start shifting that narrative and pulling myself out and saying, wait, it's actually better for him, though, if I'm living for me, because then he's seeing this way better example of what a life and what adulthood and what you should do in marriages and friendships by caring for myself. So I'm actually doing right by him by choosing myself. But it takes you time to get there.
He'll know how to put that into practice because he saw it. And he can mimic the habit of that later on.
And it's an amazing feeling, just so you know, to see them living their life for them. And they're not living for anybody else. They're living for them. Because I look at my kids, because my oldest one, he's like in a huge rock band and stuff. He lives for himself. Not for his mom, not for anybody else. This dude lives for himself, and he's happy about it. Like, there's no shame in what he does.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. But I didn't have that growing up. So when he came along, I wanted him to, sorry, I got to hear somewhere. I wanted him to realize, your mom's not always going to be there. And so you have to make yourself happy. This is your sailboat. You get to sail it on your own. I don't get to co-pilot the rest of your life. The first 18 years, I get to co-pilot, but once you get there, you're there.
You got it.
Yeah. And it's an amazing feeling because they're not clinging to me. They don't ask me for advice, which, all parents want their kids to ask them for advice. Mine don't. They just come to me with scenarios. They've already done it.
Yeah.
They've already done it. But, just to see, what do you think about this? Okay. But it's an amazing feeling. And when you raise healthy people like that, they kind of help you on your journey.
Yeah.
They really do. When they got out the house, I had an empty nester real bad. Because all I've ever done was work and, like, have a family. And you work and have a family. You work and have a family. You work and have a family. There was pieces of me that were there, but you work and you have a family.
Yeah.
So when they were gone, it was like, okay, what do I do now with my life?
You just have so much free time all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do now? What do you do now? What do you do now? And in having a dinner with my kids one day, they were like, what did you want to do before you had us? oh, that's easy. I knew exactly what I wanted to write. I wanted to be a music journalist. Easy breezy. Do that.
Yeah. Start there.
And I was like, okay. So it's a breath of fresh air when you are your own person and you don't live for other people. But those people can tell you, you were somebody before we were around.
Yeah.
And if we as women as a whole think more like that, I think our society would be a little bit more understanding when it came to like rearing children, especially children of color and biracial children. And I think we would be a little bit more understanding when it comes to what our personal needs are. Because I was told I was selfish.
Yeah.
Because I didn't live for my kids. All right, I'm going to be selfish.
Well, I know for me, I was scared to try to make that change. Thankfully, Ryder's stepmom was one of those women who she's very outspoken and she's just going to tell you what's on her mind. And we were talking one day and she was like, he should not be your number one priority. Like,
she's like, girl.
She was like, you need to focus on you and Tong and building a life, and that will just become good for him. It was her that really like said it. And I was like, wait, so why am I so scared that you're going to like shame me as a mom for like not doing it the way it always has been done?
Because that's the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, you're just sitting there and I was like, wow, okay. And as soon as she said it, I like sat down with that and was just like, you're right. Okay, yeah. I should be doing this and I should just focus on myself. And you know, if she's saying that, she's just as much in this. She knows him personally, like, okay. And then it really has like helped make a difference throughout the process of trying to get there.
Good. So let's see. Jas, help us to kind of define some daily practices to improve mental health.
The biggest one I would say is mindfulness. When this whole conversation that we're having, it really is a shift of the mindset, like releasing old habits, old ways, negative thought patterns that we may have. So my greatest, suggestion to people is finding a mindfulness practice. And when I say mindfulness practice, I didn't start with saying meditation. I do encourage any and everyone to get a meditation practice. But mindfulness, I use the word mindfulness because it could be a mindful walk, where that is a walking meditation, and you start to incorporate that habit. If it's a mindful breath moment, like you shared how much you love cooking when we were starting, like, how can I be so present and intentional and mindful as I'm making this dinner so that you can go at any part of your day to the breath? Like you also shared like writing and journaling, like how to like being mindful in that. And when you have that one practice that's individual to you, like you have to find that thing that's individual to you so that it can be something that you keep. So mindfulness, so that mindset shift can happen, because fear will come in and say, no, this is not it. And it's like, you gotta have something that says, I would like for you to hush right now, just for a little bit. So mindfulness, movement. I always tell people, get up and move. What is the thing that, when you are having a moment, gets you through? For me, it's a walk, smelling the trees, or it's a workout or something. Also, a hobby or activity. You cannot always be in work. You got to find that play in life, and not everything needs to be monetized. Like, we are in a culture where it's like your hobby, because like if you like to garden, it's like, okay, how can I sell this?
Yeah.
How can you just be in this? Do you like dance? Like, explore what you actually like so that you can take 50 minutes, if that's once a week, if that's once a day, where your mind is off of all of the chaos and you get to have that moment for yourself. Also, getting out of isolation. When we are in our darkest moments, we're like, isolate. Absolutely not. Community is what you need. Isolation comes, and that's where shame comes in. That's where fear comes in, and that's where it grapples you to be alone, and you don't have to be. Get in community, and it takes time. These other practices help you realize who is your community.
Yeah.
Who are your people? Just because they were your longevity does not mean that's who is for you now. Mm-mm. Like, community is so healing. These conversations, like getting those things that are in those demons, those dark things that you think, and sometimes laughing it out, having moments of nothingness. I always tell people, my favorite people are the people I can do nothing with. I am like, love getting dressed up and glammed, but the people who are my bestest of people, I can sit on my couch and do nothing with. And sometimes they talk or I talk or we laugh or share. Like, we can just be. Yeah. And you have to have those moments where there's imperfection in the blood of what you have, because then you can, like, whoever you are becoming can emerge. Mm-hmm. Like, recently, my friend, we were meeting, she has a little girl and our other friend had kids. So they were doing a play date and we were also having a meeting. My friend was like, Jas, what'd you do today? I was like, well, I cried in bed all day. And she was like, oh, okay. Let's talk about it. You need a drink. Like, we gonna pour a drink? What do we want right now? And I knew I was with my people because I was like, I feel safe to say I had to cry today because I was having a tough day. There are challenges that are going on, but you are a safe space. Mm-hmm. And I think so often we've created community and are around environments that we know are not socially safe. Mm-hmm. And so we can't even just like be truthful and be bare and naked in our, like, who we are. And it's that vulnerability. And literally all the next day, me and her were going to get our nails done, and she had brought me a Starbucks coffee, and it said, "You are loved." Aww. And I was like, "What'd your cup say?" Like, Starbucks out here giving affirmations. And she's like, "No, I wrote that for you. Like, I told them to write that for you." And I was like, "Thank you." Like, we love, me and her, our coffee date friends. Like, you trying to get a coffee? Like, it fills our cup. But it was in that moment that I'm like, I'm so grateful that, like, I have friendships and family who, it's okay for me to fall apart. And it's all of those practices of mindfulness and movement and finding hobbies and, like, finding the right community that, like, I feel so secure in who I am right now that, like, you feel like you can't take on the world. Yeah, you're like, just one step, I'm just going to get through one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. And for, like, I know my therapist, that's something she talks about all the time is mindfulness. Because I have a habit of go all the time. Yeah. I never pause. I am not always thinking. A lot of times I'm on autopilot, just getting stuff done. She talks a lot about mindfulness and slowing it down and finding little things you like to do and doing the hobbies and adding in workouts and doing these different things. And we just talked about it maybe a couple months ago. And I was like, well, I feel like I can't because I can't ever, like, hold to it. And then I feel a lot of shame because, like, I'll journal and, like, I'll do that consistently for a week and then I'll forget a day. And then when I forget one, then I forget multiple. She was like, yeah, but you're doing it for you, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do it every day. No one's like,
nobody's keeping tabs.
Yeah,
like,
no one's.
You didn't journal today.
Yeah.
Back up, you know?
Exactly. So, like, if you are scared to, like, take that first step or you take it and then you feel like a failure because you miss some, like, just making sure you go back to that mindful moment of, like, there's no shame in this. No one is taking tabs of it.
But it's also trying the thing on that works for you. Like, when I'm a runner and people are like, I hate running, then don't run.
Yeah, that's my husband too. He's like, why are you always running? You're running like zombies are chasing you. And I'm like, because maybe they are.
Oh, I wish I had that.
But I like it. But people forget, like, that the practice of mindfulness has so many categories under it that pick up what works for you.
Yep.
And have that. But if like I said, if journaling doesn't work, or in that season, if that thing doesn't work, it's not you're wrong or I'm bad at this. That's not what's meant to emerge. Like there are so many, and I openly share this, like there are seasons where I'm like, I do not want to pick up my journal, but I will vocalize what I'm dealing with. Like, hey, if it's me and God, if it's just me and the universe just talking and you just got to talk it out, that's still like my thoughts coming out and going somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's in meditation, people are like, I can't sit. Your thoughts are supposed to come up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you need a guided meditation, do guided meditations. Do not sit and force yourself to say, I just sat and I just like breathe. Like that it genuinely doesn't have to work like that. You can use Deepak Chopra or anybody else and they guide you through, and like you can listen to the same thing over and over, and it may be the thing that on the 20th, 100th time, whatever it is, clicks. But you have to give yourself grace to be like, let me explore. Like, what is a habit that every day, like I meditate every morning, and it's like some days I don't, but I see my day kind of off when I don't, but I'm like, I'll just in this moment, like yesterday I was rushing, I was like, you can take 15 minutes to meditate.
Yeah.
I'm okay to do that. And the rest of my day I was like, you're good.
And even if a lot of times people don't realize, even when you sit in the car in the driveway when you get home, that is you being in the moment.
Yeah.
That is you being mindful and just people don't realize that's actually a good practice. Because my husband has pulled up and he just looks at me. He's like, hey, and he goes right inside. He doesn't bother me. That is me trying to take that 15, 20 minutes to like come down off of whatever high I had going on and say, okay, I'm refocused. I'm recentered. I can go finish the rest of my day now.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be something that just, pops up like, oh, I have to journal or I have to run. It can just be standing still for a moment.
That is our hardest thing, is to be still, do nothing.
And be in the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a long period of time, but if you can just sit still for a second. And I tell people often it's all the chatter that goes on around us that makes us feel uneasy. So if you are able to like turn the music off and turn the TV, especially turn the TV off. Please turn the TV off. Turn it off and just take a minute and kind of reflect within. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. It will reset you in ways that you've never thought you could reset.
Yeah.
You have to take those moments and just be. Sometimes it's hard because you get intrusive thoughts. You get all kinds of stuff playing around. You can acknowledge it, let it go, and then move on.
Yeah. And it does make a difference, even if it is just 5 minutes.
It does.
Like I sometimes will get I'm very high functioning. So even when I'm in like the worst of the worst internally, I am still functioning, going to work. I'm doing all the things. And a lot of times when I get in that spot, I will just sit in my car for, 5-10 minutes, put on some kind of like guided meditation podcast or whatever, just 5 minutes before I have to walk in. Just give me a moment to like, let it out, decompress, get my brain together before I have to go in and do something that, already has me spiraling before I'm in the door. Like, take a moment, relax, because it does change your day. You do tell a difference. And I am one of those people that like, I don't get up in the morning and work out. I struggle putting all the practices in habit, but I will say that anytime that you do it, anytime you finish a meditation, you finish, a yoga class or whatever the case, like just how you feel afterwards, it's like, oh, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Like the demons can come today. I'm ready to fight. Yeah. Let's do it.
You're never like, ugh, so mad at myself for doing that one. Never. Never.
No, it's always such a relief.
Okay, so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I wanted to ask, what does self-care look like for you, Jas?
Self-care for me right now is rest. Mm-hmm. It is, and I have been saying this, it's trusting in the rest. Like all of the work you've done, all of the running you've done, like now you get to rest. So that is my greatest like self-care. Granted, that's not me laying in bed all day. Yeah. But it truly is this moment of like less is more for me. So I'm not saying yes to every single thing. I'm actually like, no, I'd rather be just chilling and doing, or, self-care is also just enjoying life, like showing up for my friends and just being there. And it's not that your typical self-care, but I do want to shed light on these things. Like rest is one of the most important parts of self-care. And that's where I am right now. Like, and battle it's uncomfortable sometimes because I'm like, girl, you're supposed to be. And it's like, no, like we really enjoy this. So
like allowing yourself to rest, not being like, oh, I should be cleaning the house, I should be ordering the groceries, I should be,
and all of that stuff is done. Like if you really sit with it, you're like, there's this saying, nothing to do or undo, nothing to want, nothing's missing, everything is fine. And like when you actually like can sit in that and be
look
like,
at it,
you're like, I love that.
It really is nothing to do. Oh my God.
Okay, Kayla, what's it look like for you?
Oh, it's different all the time. I think that since I'm still fairly deep in my healing journey and that walk with myself of finding the practices and finding what works for me, it's different all the time. It's just listening to my body and, trying to be thoughtful in drinking enough water. And like, maybe if I am feeling like pent up, you'll start seeing snaps from me. I'm like out in the woods somewhere on a hike, like just in the middle of nowhere, running around with my boys. Like it's spending time with the boys. It's getting that moment. So, it's always, it's different every time. It's just trying to wake up that morning, sit there for a second and say, okay, what do I feel like I need today? I need to go do this, or I need to be in the woods. I need to reconnect. I need to lay on the couch and rot today. Like it's just trying to switch it up and not hold myself to like such a regimen. Like you have to do this to be perfect. Just accept yourself where you're at and love your way through
different it. Because I've grown in life so much. So now mine is do not be busy today.
I love that.
Because you are always busy.
It is do not be busy today. And so if that means I do not get up and get dressed and I just stay in my comfy clothes, in my blanket, and binge watch television for 6 hours, it is do not be busy today.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to not be busy because there is so much I have going on. But I am learning to not be busy today. If that means you do not cook today, you do not clean today, you do not write today, you do not run around, you do not do interviews today, you do not work today. Today, you are going to do nothing.
You are enough.
Yep.
You are enough in today. This moment. Yeah.
So you are doing nothing today, which is really hard. I don't think you've ever heard me say I was doing nothing. But there are moments when I do nothing. And my husband will look and he's like, oh, you're upstairs in the den? I was like, yeah, I'm not, we're not doing anything. I'm not working in the yard. I'm doing nothing today. Yeah. And so that is what self-care looks like for me because I am always doing something. And so now I'm at a point to where it's like, you do nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing is emergent. No one's going to die. No one's going to starve to death.
Yeah.
Do nothing. And it's amazing when I do. Because I can take a nap. I can, you don't have to really think about what it is going on.
Yeah.
So that's what self-care looks like for me.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's like, this is a blast.
Yeah, like, it's weird when you do it because the first couple times you do it, you're like, need to go wash the dishes right now.
Yeah.
And you have to remind yourself, nope, Nope, you're not.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Get to that when it's time to get to that. But just all you got to do is be right here, right now. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know. You really don't have to do that. It can wait. It can wait. You have to learn to say it can wait. And it's refreshing because once you start getting in the habit of doing it once a month or something, you're like, man, today's my do nothing day. Woo,
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, we are not doing anything today. We're not doing nothing. We're doing nothing today. Get my popcorn. I don't know what trash TV we were watching.
But so excited for it.
Yes. So it is. It's refreshing when you're done with it because you can go back to regular life. But you've taken that moment to literally just and have no plans.
Yeah. So
that is what self-care looks like for me. Well, that is our time. Jas, it has been an amazing
it has been a pleasure.
Journey with you. Will you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me if you're looking to listen to the podcast, Honeydew Comfortable Conversations. We talk a lot about discomfort and how that discomfort leads us to persevere and do amazing things. So you can find the Honeydew Comfortable Conversations on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube. You can follow my personal page on Instagram, Jas, JASSKIRK, or you can also follow our Honeydew page, Honey, HUNNIDUOE. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that is our podcast. You can follow us on hellafriends.com. It's Hella, HELLA-friends.com. You can check us out on Spotify. We're also on Apple Podcasts now as of last week. And you can always follow us on YouTube. Kayla, you got something to say?
Just life be life.
Life
be life. And
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.